You know, we all think of aging as this thing that's absolutely inevitable, right? But what if I told you it's not? What if there's a life form out there that has somehow, almost impossibly, found a way to stop time itself? Today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of a biological titan that seems to have solved the puzzle of growing old.
I mean, that one sentence right there, that's the whole mystery, isn't it? It points to this living paradox, a creature that seems to completely ignore the fundamental rules of life and death that everything else has to follow.
All right, so where do we even find this thing? Well, our journey takes us to the misty, cloud-covered peaks of Yakushima, this remote island in Japan, and it's here that we find the ancient organism we're talking about, the Jomon Sugi cedar.
Okay, so think about this contrast. On one side, you have us, and pretty much every other complex organism on the planet. We're all locked into this cycle of being born, growing up, getting old, and eventually decaying. It's just how it works. But on the other side, you have these Jomon Sugi cedars. They just keep going. It's like they found the off switch for aging.
Just let that number really sink in for a second. 7,000 years. This tree was just a little sapling when the very first human cities were being built in Mesopotamia. It was already ancient before the Roman Empire was even a thing. This isn't just a long life. This is a completely different kind of existence.
And this, of course, gets us to the core question. It all comes down to this fundamental law of the universe called entropy. You know, the natural tendency for everything, from stars to cars to our own bodies, to break down over time. So, how does this one tree get a pass? What's its secret?
Well, to answer that, we've got to look at its unique survival playbook. Let's start decoding some of the most amazing longevity hacks that nature has ever come up with, all perfected by these trees over thousands of years.
So the whole strategy for the Jomon Sugi is about being incredibly patient and super efficient. It's basically a four-step process. First, it senses when conditions are bad, like a terrible drought or a harsh winter. Then, it doesn't just endure, it goes into an extreme metabolic slowdown, almost like a form of suspended animation. From there, it makes a really radical choice. It starts to shed parts of itself that aren't absolutely essential. And finally, it just waits, sometimes for centuries, until things get better and it can start a new growth spurt.
And one of the most fascinating parts of this strategy is the hollow heart phenomenon. Now that sounds like a weakness, right? A hollow core. But it's actually an act of pure evolutionary genius. The tree strategically lets its inner core, the non-essential part, just decay. This massively cuts down on its energy needs, letting it survive on almost nothing, all without losing its main structural strength. It's incredible.
And we're not just talking about surviving one tough winter here. This is a strategy for outlasting entire eras of bad climate. By becoming hollow, by slowing everything down to a near standstill, the tree can literally press pause on its life, just waiting patiently for a better world to wake up in.
Now, this is all amazing for a tree on a remote island, but the big question for us is, so what? What does any of this mean for us? How do we take these ancient secrets from the forest floor and translate them into something useful in a modern lab?
And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's the one scientists are absolutely racing to answer. Can the principles that keep a cedar tree alive for millennia be adapted, translated, and actually applied to our own biology? Is there a lesson for humanity hidden in this ancient wood? You know, the parallels are pretty tantalizing when you look at them. The tree uses these protective resins to survive damage. Well, in labs today, researchers are exploring cellular reprogramming, which is essentially about turning older cells back into younger, more flexible versions of themselves. The tree's strategic dormancy, that's a mirror of the holy grail of longevity research, finding a way to safely hit pause on our own biological clocks.
And this isn't science fiction. The source material for this actually highlights that these very principles, the ones we're learning from a 7,000-year-old tree, are inspiring real breakthroughs in labs right now, with some looking toward 2026 as a year for major progress. Nature's ancient playbook is literally becoming the blueprint for our own future.
So this all brings us to the final and maybe the most profound idea of all. This isn't just about new medicines or treatments, it's about a massive shift in our whole philosophy of what aging even is.
So what if we just stop seeing aging as this unstoppable force of nature? You know, this thing that we just have to surrender to.
And instead, we started to see it for what it might really be, a biological program, a clock. And like any clock, it could potentially be paused, wound back, or maybe even reset completely. That is the paradigm shift that this 7,000-year-old tree is inspiring.
And that's the thought I really want to leave you with.
It's a question that goes way beyond biology. It touches on everything about our society, our lives, what it means to be human. If aging is no longer a given but a variable, a clock we can reset, what does that future even look like?